Home team. What's happening, home team? This your boy Blackberry Rex coming at you with a Atlanta Falcon victory over the Washington Commanders at home, 34-27. They go on the road last weekend. Carolina put up a goose egg. Carolina Panthers came out with a very convincing win against the Atlanta Falcons in week 3. And throughout this week, going into week 4, Atlanta Falcons fans was very, very disappointed, of course, which they should be, but they were also very critical of the coaching and the decisions that coaching has made. Uh, and apparently, the coaching decisions that were made leading up into this game uh, for this most recent decision making with the firing of the wide receivers coach, I Hilliard, the bringing the offensive coordinator slash play caller, Zach Robinson, down to the field, out of the uh, press box, out of the box. What they did was they tried to bridge a communication gap that they were saying was being had between personnel and play calling slash coaching. And it appears that with this 34-7 victory today over the Washington Commanders, that may have had something to do with the poor communication between personnel and coaching. Some of us, like myself, I thought that that communication had something more to do with just being able to communicate verbally with one another, but also communication on what uh, the idea of the offense should be operated as such with the scheme and the play calling. I thought that was a part of the miscommunication as well. And I do believe that Raheem Morris kind of gave us a bit, a little bit of what's going on inside with that when he said that this was Michael Penix's team and it's going to be up to him to get out of whatever funk that he's in and that the offense has been in. And we saw today Michael Penix taking more chances down the field. Michael Penix doing more uh, before the snap of the ball, making decisions on whether or not to audible out of plays, whether or not to change up blocking schemes, or whether or not to come out of a pass into a run. For the most part, you saw him pretty much operate exactly how he has, but it was the decision making. It was the trust in his personnel. It was the trust in himself. It was the trust in the play calls as well, and that communication being that bridge of communication being bridged back together from past weeks when we saw that there clearly was an issue. But with that being said, 34-27, 34 points from no points. There's a couple things you can say that goes to play here. You come off the road, you're in your home. We have been on the road past couple weeks. Your first game on the road, you get a victory in Minnesota against a Minnesota Vikings team who's very stout up front, very physical, much like the Washington team that you played today. But you go to Carolina, and a Carolina team who had over the years has proven they're always going to play the Falcons tough. And we saw that toughness in the trenches, but we also saw that whatever issues carried over from the victory in Minnesota offensively for the Falcons carried over into a division game on the road that reared its ugly head and forced coaching to make decisions that they probably wouldn't have made if you don't have the type of game that you had against Carolina. So here we are going into week 4 against it, coming back home from a 2-game road trip where you're going up against an opponent who also has proven to be very physical with you. And we saw today that the Washington Commanders weren't going to change that physicality, especially under a Dan Quinn led team. They were very physical up front on defense and offense. We saw Falcons up front that did more than step up to the challenge. Defensively, we were getting after it. It was some plays. I did see some plays where it looked like some guys got stood up a bit, but I think that was more so along the lines of just making sure they wanted to stay in their gaps because you have a Marcus Mariota who, when he chooses to, he does like to take off running. He's not going to go through reads a whole lot. Every other play, he might go through some reads, but we know he's a do I see my first option open guy? I'm either going to check down or I'm going to take off running. I think today we did a decent enough job, especially in the second half, of containing him. In the first half, we let him get loose a couple times. I didn't like, but for the most part, the physicality that the Falcons were going to have to use, were going to have to be ready and willing to do that physicality, that they were going to have to be willing to I'm losing my train of thought here, but the ability to be physical and the willingness to be physical. We saw the Falcons step up to the plate and live up to the standard that we expect them to live up to with the physicality. Washington plays us physical every time we play them, and we saw today that even though, for my liking, a little too much in the ring with the run game, that we gave up on defense, but for the most part, we did a hell of a job containing them. Our playmakers are still continuing to make plays. I said that was going to be the difference in this Falcons defense compared to past Falcons defenses. You have legitimate playmakers now, the legitimate difference makers. Xavier Watts proving that today. Also, the Washington Commanders team, I'm going to dig into this deeper throughout the week. Stand by for a video for it. But they made it a point to stay away from Billy Bowman Jr. They made it a point to stay away from him. Once it was maybe once or twice in the first quarter where Zach Ertz was found himself in some space with Billy Bowman Jr. In some zone situations, and I think the adjustment that was made defensively was that instead of having Billy play the open zones, they was going to play him more in the closed zones. If he's in more of the closed zones, then he's taking away a lot of opportunities in the short field. And I think once that adjustment was made, Washington decided to stay away from Billy Bowman Jr. I think not having AJ Terrell is still kind of hurting us a bit. D. Alford did get picked on a couple times today. He played okay for the most part. It was he had a couple penalties. He gave up a touchdown in the end zone. Not totally his fault because you're playing a zone. The kind of zone we were playing in the end zone there is kind of, if there's no pressure on the quarterback, you're going to leave too many opportunities for receivers to find space in the zones, especially in the back of the end zone. And that's what happened. So for the most part, he played decent. Last week, he played actually fairly well last week. But, he was picked on a bit today. But missing AJ Terrell still, hopefully we get him back sooner rather than later. But for the most part, you can't ask the defense too much more from the defense when you're dealing with a quarterback who is a runner. He likes to take off running. So you're more conservative on the being overly aggressive or even being aggressive in your approach. But hey, man, the Atlanta Falcons 34-27, good turnaround from the week before when you laid a goose egg. But I think some questions were answered today, especially as far as is coaching capable of making the necessary adjustments to get you back into the winning column with this team. We're in a conference, not just a division, but we're in a conference that's going to be there for the taking. And it's going to be very important that coaching is capable of making these types of adjustments, whether it's with personnel, whether it's with coaching, whether it's with play calling and scheme. Today, we saw that it is possible. Now, let's see if we can keep it going. This is victory for the Atlanta Falcons. Can't wait to talk to you all on Victory Monday. This has been the home team with Blakberry. That's Blakberry, no C, just a K. Make sure you hit that sub button. Make sure you hit that like button and share this out and comment down in the comment section. Let me know what you thought about the game. With that being said, catch me on the flip side, home team.
Night ride on the trail.